Alison is one of the most interesting people that I know.
My name is Alison Teal.
Look at all these skeletons!
And my passion is to dive into the unknown.
She is like the living, breathing Indiana Jones, Dora the Explorer, Laura Croft, you name it, but she goes well beyond that. She was born and raised traveling around the world. She got the bug early for storytelling, and she's been creating content ever since she was super young. It's so good to see you. How have you been doing through all this madness?
It's fun to see you in front of the camera. Oh my God, it's totally coconuts. I mean, literally, I just actually got a coconut off the tree. Emotional roller coaster, you know? I mean, I think everybody's going through it. There's a lot of tragedy in the world right now. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of creativity happening. There's a lot of drama, family drama. I don't think anybody's really knowing what's going to happen. There's a lot of unknown. It's so funny because I grew up off the grid, you know, here in Hawaii. We have a Hawaii retreat center. It's like a jungle lodge. You know, growing up, I was always like, well, I want to go to a big city. You know, you always want, the grass is always greener, right? Somewhere else. And right now I'm just feeling appreciation for what we do have, the gardens we have, the ocean that we have in front of our house. The beaches are closed here in Hawaii right now. So, you know, I'm just sending a lot of aloha. And so what I've found during this time is that I really like to help people. I like to help people around the world. That's what I do with my films and my conservation work. And I'm sure, like everyone else, I'm feeling stuck, like I can't do anything. But what I've realized, and you know, what I'm advising other people to do, is to dive into what your own passions are. And that's how you get help. So like we're doing right now, hopefully this can be inspirational to people. I'm a filmmaker, an author now. I'm so excited.
For my latest adventure, I dove into writing a book to educate youth through my entertaining adventures from around the world.
I'm sharing my adventures with families all over the world in hopes of inspiring, you know, education through entertainment during these pretty wild times.
Yeah, and in a way, this whole photo series that we've been hosting was born as a result of that. Because early on, I was talking to people like you that have become friends about photographies and passions that we share and how to remain positive and productive. And the whole photo series was born out of that because it is a unique opportunity to appreciate friends and family, but also to learn. You know, I've not had a chance to sit down and talk to people because you're always on the go. You know, I never know where in the world I'm going to find you. That's why you keep that globe near you, right? So you can pick where you're going to go next. And so in a way, it's great.
Brazil. What? I went to Brazil.
There you go.
There you go.
I think you've been to every continent. But let's talk a little bit about your history. So you started traveling because your parents were on the road, you were homeschooled from a very early age. When would you say did you make the transition to wanting to capture a lot of your wild stories and share them with people? You know, how did that passion start, and when did it make a transition to either film or photo or storytelling in a more multimedia sense?
Well, you might find this funny, but the coconuts are always greener in someone else's yard. So I grew up literally that Tarzan child, right? That was with my parents who were explorers, like National Geographic photographers. They shot for companies like Patagonia and Eagle Creek and North Face. And so literally my entire life since birth was living out of a backpack in the most remote and exotic and dangerous regions on Earth. At about 2 months old, they took me up the highest peak in southern Peru, and I turned blue, I think, towards the top, so they rushed me back down. I passed out, and then I came to giggling, and I think that kind of foreshadowed my love of like going into the unknown and coming out of it with this effervescence and this joy. Oh, there's my guest star.
The parental units are making an
How
appearance.
fun! He's making an appearance.
Hey, how's it?
Talking about it right now. So basically, I traveled with him my whole childhood existence, and every morning was always about getting the shot.
Poor kid. He had no choice.
This is so fun. So literally, it was every morning waking up with a tent with this wild cat. Look at this. Look at this.
You photo, yeah?
And I know your dad was a National Geographic photographer, right? So I'm assuming that some of that came from him.
I did some shots for them. I mostly shot for Patagonia and Outside Magazine, and a lot of outdoor companies like North Face. You know, all of us were friends. We were climbing buddies, we were ski buddies, and a lot of my friends started companies, and I'd be going to Peru to do a climb, and they'd say, "Here, take my backpack and get us some photos."
Uh-huh.
And next thing you know, they were paying me. What do you think? It just kept, you know, it was more than just photography. It was a lifestyle choice. It was just another element that allowed us to maintain our outdoor lifestyle and keep traveling. And when Alison was born, I realized I probably wasn't going to climb Everest. It was in the works, but it wasn't going to happen. You have a kid, all of a sudden things shift. Now I had a wife and a daughter to photograph. So it turned into a family.
Default models.
You know, yeah, exactly. And Alison and her mom are both incredibly photogenic and great travel buddies. And it just kept, you know, I mean, she survived it, so I guess it was okay.
Barely.
But the companies I shot for, they didn't want to see a posed photo. So everything had to be action. The people had to look real, doing what they were doing. They had to look connected to it. And and by the time you've been on the trail for a couple months, it's hard not to.
My dad has never gone on Zoom before. He's never done a live interview. You're getting the very first. And the only way I could get him to do this is to say, just drop in. If I would have planned it, it would have never happened. But he's one of the best photographers in the history of this world. And I can't believe he's actually sitting here with me right now. So this is just so awesome. And
we're pretty proud of Alison, because, you know, when you're a parent, you feel like nobody wrote the guidebook, especially for our lifestyle. And you try something and you hope it works. We didn't really limit what she was able to do or what we were doing with her. And now to see her taking all that background and turning it into a career based on the environment, based on conservation, based on the oceans, based on things she loves, and adapting our lifestyle to that whole premise of how important the planet is and the oceans. You know, we couldn't be prouder. So it's pretty special that she's able to connect with people like you, and you guys create family to continue on with the legacy of what we all know is important.
You're absolutely right. You know, I think that Alison embodies all of the things that she preaches. You know, she really walks the talk. Thank you for stopping by and contributing a little.
Carry on with your
The show must go on.
You take care. Aloha.
he's a baby Zoomer, get it?
We got a special appearance. I like it. Now we just got to get Mom at the end of this to do a yoga session.
I know, right?
When did you pick up the camera from him and start trying to, you know, turn the tables a little bit and shining a light on what you were experiencing?
Well, here's the info you didn't get when Papa was in the room. I couldn't stand photography growing up. Because I had to get up at 4 a.m. on some freezing cold peak to climb up to a hill to try to find an abominable snowman or whatever adventure. In my mind, I was finding, the abominable snowman. In his mind, he was going to go get a really great ski shot. But I was young and I wanted adventure that was more kid, right? Like, oh, what are we going to discover? And so when you're freezing and you're hungry and it's early morning and, you just want to have a quote normal life that you see in Disney movies on the airplanes, I was like, get that camera out of my face. The grass is always greener, right? Mm-hmm. But then as the adventures continued and as I grew up and then started growing into adulthood and realizing that, wow, this tribe that we grew up with, their waters are now polluted. This beach that I grew up on, there's plastic covering it and all the turtles are dying, and these marine life, animal friends that were my only friends growing up. I didn't really have human friends. They're dying. And so all of a sudden I went, well, how do I give them a voice? And I have an eye for filmmaking and for photography, but I would always get frustrated that it was just a photo, right? Like, we'd go through this almost dying crazy adventure and we'd come out with like one photo. And so in my mind, I was like, we need to film this. We need to get the story out there. We need to show what's really happening. And so lo and behold, you can only rebel against your parents for so long. I actually went from homeschooling to getting into all the universities that I applied to. I even blew my own mind that a girl who grew up with no TV gets accepted to USC Film School to make TV and to make television. And it was a huge honor. I got a scholarship to UC Berkeley, and I studied, archaeology, anthropology, and I went on to USC and did film. And then my dream was to take, I always joked, I said, I'm going to take my camera and my surfboard under my arms on my camel, and I'm going to set off across the world, because my camel was like my eco transport. And so that's actually what ended up becoming the cover of my new book, which is Alisons Adventures. And it's just, I had to cry when I saw this. I was like, wow, if you really have a dream and you come from nothing, which I literally came from nothing but a lot of love and like 2 coconuts, you can accomplish anything. And to be honored by, Time Magazine with the female Indiana Jones, and getting to do the Oprahs and the Ellens and and I don't mean that from a bragging standpoint. I mean it from like, I never thought I could accomplish anything, because nobody even knew if I'd actually speak or read or write growing up in these wild places, let alone be able to sit here with the likes of you and to inspire others. So
I have another, from my perspective, interesting question to ask you, because your perspective is so different. A lot of people, I was talking to Ben Van Wong, and I've talked to chemical engineers and mining engineers and physicists in Michael Clark, who discovered photography and decided to make storytelling what they wanted to do. And some people have a lot of schooling for cinematography, right? So here you are, you were born, out in the wild, and you were brought into this academic environment. What was that experience like? What do you find that you learned from schooling that was memorable and really different than the lessons that you were learning by doing?
Well, I think there's okay, so schooling versus school of life, right? I definitely had school of life with my parents and with being around cameras all the time, and what's going to take to get the shot and the lighting and the magic hour and the composition. And I think that was kind of ingrained in me from a young age. But then to have that structure of going to a film school and having to stay up till 2 a.m, and everybody's like, there was 30 of us in a class. It was very competitive. And I think that was good to have that stimulation of like wanting to compete, but also collaborate, because if you don't collaborate, you can't get anything done in a setting like that. So I think people dynamics is really important to learn, whether you're going to be on a set or working with a model. So that kind of thing, was very helpful in college, learning how to work with a team. Because if you want to do a big Hollywood production, you see the credits roll at an end of a film. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that go on there. But what my biggest message, I think, would be is that you don't have to have a film school education. You don't even have to have a camera. You can have an iPhone that has, a film camera on it. Some of my most viral films, because what I do is I make cause-based films to try to help change environmental laws or, really inspire education through entertainment. They've been shot on an iPhone that I happened to capture. Here I'm paddling through the river in LA. It's flooded with plastic. Hey, throw the iPhone to a friend, and we capture it, and it goes up and it gets millions and millions of views overnight, and it helps to ban the plastic bag in California. So that's one element. But the other element that I would say is I personally don't care for the whole kind of selfie generate. Like, I really wanted all my work to look like we had a whole Nat Geo crew. We had a whole Discovery crew. And I remember when I did Naked and Afraid, one of the high-ups at Discovery came to me and they're like, but, well, who did all your films? Like, what's your production company? What? And I'm like, it's me. And Sarah Lee, as you know, who's an incredible photographer that's been behind the lens. My parents have sometimes done it. Sarah Lee, Mark Tipple in Australia, Alex Voyer in France. So these amazing teams that have mostly been volunteer all over the world to help me bring these films to life. When I say team, it's usually like me and one other person. And so what I've realized is that you don't need the bells, the whistles, all the things, if you have a good story and if you have someone that shares your vision and has that eye. And so literally us 2 girls took off across the world for like 5 or 6 years in some of the craziest conditions. I don't know if I recommend it. It was hard. It was a lot. It was stressful. I mean, I can keep a smile and have my pink bikini, and that's my brand. That's Alisons Adventures. That's fun. This is made out of recycled plastic bottles. My surfboard's made out of coffee cups, like rah rah. But then here you are stuck on an island in Fiji with potentially still cannibals and, firewalkers and there's all kinds of things that can come up. And so I think it depends on, what kind of photography or filmmaking you want to do, but also just that passion of starting and just getting out there and just trying it, because it's taken me 10 years. And I think what people don't realize is like what you create in your garage, like, GoPro was created in a garage for years and years, and now it's out there in the market and everybody knows about it, but it didn't just happen overnight. And so some of the things that we're watching on my films right now, I shot 8 years ago. And it's just coming to light. So you just have to stay dedicated and keep going.
Okay. From a cinematography perspective, do you feel like you've developed a style? And given that you have footage that I assume you repurpose or you reuse, or stories that draw on footage that you collected from years ago, what can you say about your stylistic choices on how you put the story together, where you put the camera? Again, within the confines of what you just said, having a basic crew or just one or two other people helping, or sometimes you even filming some of the footage. How would you describe your style, if any? And it's okay if you don't feel like you have one, but that's why I'm asking.
I 100% have a style that I didn't even know was becoming a style, but basically, I guess the best way to describe it would be kind of if Disney and Discovery had a baby. Like you said, a lot of people liken me to Dora the Explorer or Wild Thornberrys. I actually just got to do the real life Dora. I got to be a real life explorer like Dora for the Paramount Pictures film, and got to make 5 Alisons Adventures films that were my own creations with Paramount Pictures that I edited. I made all on myself on my laptop. And again, not saying that as like a whoa, look at me. It's like a holy taco. I've created a style and people are loving it and they're coming after it. And what is trippy to me is that when I began all this, I got a lot of like this kind of look. Like, okay, so is her stuff for kids? Is she Indiana Jones? Is it Discovery? Is it educational? Why is she so peppy? What's the pink bikini have anything to do with travel? And like, does that mean she's a model? But then why does she take her surfboard everywhere with her? And what does that represent? And I'm like, it represents saving waters. And people are like, why do you have it in the middle of London? And so I got a lot of like, well, who are you? Or what are you? Or what's your style? What are you doing? And honestly, how my style birthed is I don't know how to edit any other way. It was just my my voiceover and my computer was all I had, and the stuff that Sarah shot. And so I wanted to tell kind of a mixture of fiction, fairy tale, and documentary, because that's what inspired me as a kid, was like Disney films and all these exciting adventures. And I'm like, but wait, I just met Aladdin in Morocco. Like, wait a minute, he's real. Hang on, I'm going to show you a real story about him, but I'm going to edit it just like a Disney film because that's all I saw on airplanes. And at first I think people were confused. And what I'm trying to say with this is that you have to do something over a period of time to develop a style. And so I think a lot of people will start something and then go, oh, 2 people didn't like it, I'm not going to do that. Or 50 people didn't like it, or 50 people were confused, I'm not going to do that. But what about the other 300 over here that like it, or that grow into that? If you develop it, kind of like if you build it, they will come type of thing. And so that's what has been really exciting to me, is that when Ripley's Believe It or Not approached me for the book, I was thinking like, oh man, it's just going to be like, believe it or not, believe it or not, the oceans are dying, or believe it or not, there's camels in Morocco. And they were like, well, no, we like your Alison's adventure style. There's got to be like the girl in the pink surfboard and the pink bikinis. And I'm like, really? You like my style? Like, that's how exciting is that, right? That I've just done what I love. I love traveling with my pink surfboard. I love surfing. I love adventure. I love being Indiana Jones. So why can't you combine it all? And so I think you just gotta, yes, people say focus and find your niche, but it's okay if you have many different elements that go into your style. Just keep doing that. Just keep throwing spaghetti, see what sticks, throw spaghetti, see what sticks, and do it for you. Don't do it for everyone else. Do what gives you passion. And if you have passion, then it's gonna attract people to your passion. And I always say that positivity creates positive change. And so that's what I've tried to do. I take very serious issues like Trash Island and I bring pink to them. I bring humor to them. something for the whole family, because if we stay in this doomsday feeling, who's going to care about that? And so yes, there's the incredible filmmakers that show the dark sides of things. We need them too. But my side is this education through entertainment. And if you just keep going, that style persists, and you know, you can do it.
I love it. So well said. Maybe talk us through some of your favorite stories or some of the causes that have helped you along the way also become a better storyteller.
Yeah, 100%. Well, when you live in Hawaii and you lose almost 50% of your reef since 2011, and you live right in a small fishing village on a reef, you notice it. And so what I say is, you kind of have to see it to believe it. And I think that's why I took up the cause of plastic pollution and ocean protection, is because I see it every day, everywhere I travel, from the poorest village to the richest city to the highest mountain to the most deserted desert. There is plastic everywhere in this world. It's the one commonality that I found we all have, no matter what. And it's not one person's fault. It's everyone's problem to deal with. And so I think this great tragedy of plastic is actually going to end up uniting the world, because we're going to have to come together to figure out a solution to it. And you know what I will say is, right now, you know, we're in a global pandemic, and so thinking about anything else that's tragic is really hard to do, because there's so much tragedy going on, and we want to put our energy towards, you know, this horrible virus that is going around. However, if we think long term, BPA and the chemicals in plastic and the toxic, you know, pollution in sunscreens that we don't even know about, that's killing our reefs, these things that we can't see, in the long term are going to have a horrible effect. And we can only survive about 4 days without water, our human body. And so imagine if something got in our waterways. I mean, we'd have a much bigger catastrophe than we're dealing with right now. And so I'm trying to think in that long-term way of, you know, the planet might be fine, but us humans might get wiped out if we don't stop this crazy plastic pollution issue and other pollutants that are going into our waters, because water is life. And as you can see, you know, in my book, I did a whole chapter on Trash Island, and basically what I've tried to do is kind of go where no surfer girl has gone before, and see these places that are really out of sight, out of mind, where plastics gather from all over the world on ocean currents into these gyres in the ocean. You know, a lot of people hear, oh, there's this island the size of Texas that has trash in the middle of the ocean. And there's so many problems with plastic gathering in our oceans, from microscopic level to big levels that are breaking down, that are getting eaten by fish, they're getting eaten by us. There's toxic sunscreens that are really hurting our reefs here in Hawaii. And I made a film and worked with Raw Elements and Hawaiian Airlines to support getting toxic sunscreens banned. And the law just passed. And so, you know, it's just amazing to know that a 1-minute film, it was shown on all airlines, you know, entering Hawaii, can show people what's happening. So with what you can see, then you can want to make change. And so instead of, you know, everybody has their way of making change. Mine is through showing. And what I like to say, and what I talked about in my TED Talk, is that since the age of time, storytelling has been the way that we make change in this world, right? Like, oh, here's a story about how to do the best crops, right? But maybe it'll surround around a demon and these supernatural figures of the sun and the moon. But that was how they survived, was on these stories that were passed down. Well, those stories, I don't know if those stories will work anymore in these modern day societies. However, we have a new form of storytelling, and it's called social media. And so what I've done, and I get goosebumps thinking about it, is I just started posting things. Look, here's Trash Island. Look, I'm in Tulum, Mexico, paddle boarding through this massive river of plastic. Look, I'm in Los Angeles in your own backyard, and you're not seeing all this plastic. Let's do something about it. And then having these films go viral and be able to make change. And so I think that traveling with a purpose, traveling with a cause, creates your own happiness, and it also creates happiness for the planet. So that would be my suggestion, is if you want to take up photography, take up an art form, figure out your cause behind it, and it'll make your happiness better, and also those, you know, who you connect with.
That's so awesome. One of the things that I've also noticed is that you're able to tell stories in layers, and it relates to what you were saying about social media, right? People's attention spans is less.
Yeah.
People are consuming media through different distribution mechanisms. And so in a way today, you have to make change by reaching people in different ways, in multiple platforms, packaged in different formats. So it's maybe not just making a long form movie, but it's having shorter versions that people can consume on their phones, and having a social message that also conveys the same overall message, and trying to get people engaged. How much of that do you see? Because it seems to me like a lot of what you're doing, whether it's your book, some of your trips, what you're doing, bringing islands together, they connect people, they connect dots, and that becomes part of your story. Am I reading into that right? Is that by accident?
No, 100%. I mean, before this pandemic hit, I got my dream email. It was from the U.S. government. It's the U.S. State Department, and we were creating a program to connect island nations through surfing. And so, lo and behold, I got to go back to the Maldives, where I survived naked and afraid, where I helped make change and get Trash Island cleaned up, and take women in their full, hijab, burqa look out surfing. They couldn't even swim, and here we are surfing for the first time, and they're telling me, wow, this is the most liberating day of my life, this is amazing. It's so surreal to know how this pink surfboard has opened so many doors for me. And I think that's the thing, is find your tool. To me, this is a symbol of protecting the oceans, of connecting cultures all over the world. It's having the ride of my life through these different environments to say, hey, we're a girl, we can love pink, we can be strong, but we can love pink, and we can be passionate, we can be feminine, and we don't have to be anything except who we are. You don't have to be me, you can be yourself, you can be whatever type of female you want to be, and we need female and we need males, and we need to learn how to work together and support each other. And so what I've called it is kind of like my global Ohana, and that's why I think it's really amazing. You've been, I guess if you want to put it simply, a camera sponsor, but so much more than that. Look at us, we're here talking for an hour from our homes. I want to create Ohana around the world. I don't want to just be like, oh, I need this product, send it to me. I have, family, there's the Kind Humans family with the water bottle I have. I mean, this isn't a plug at all, but this is just fascinating. Like Borreo, these are my friends, they're making cutlery out of bamboo. And it's, explore.org, they're helping save, animals around the world. These are my friends. So when I do stuff like make this surfboard I made with Matt Biolis's 5-year-old daughter, who owns Lost. It's one of the biggest surfboard companies in the world. This isn't just a sponsored surfboard. This is something we created together, and she painted it. And there's a story behind everything that I wear, that I do. This bikinis made out of recycled plastic bottles, some of which came from places I've cleaned up around the world. They're a family to me. And so what I found is, that's my method of going out there. I don't want to just take from the earth or take from people. I try to make everything kind of this. I grew up in a trade society. I've never been to Burning Man. I don't really know how that works, but I can think maybe it's likened to something like that. It's like, you give me potatoes, I give you fruit. And I'm not saying money's bad. It's just, that's what I kind of learned. And so it's like, oh, JR, I'm going to Mexico. I'm teaming up with Nat Geo scientists. We're going to go cave diving for some of the oldest humans in the Americas and learn facts about climate change and how it's affecting one of our last freshwater sources on Earth. And you're like, what? That's such a cool cause I want to support. We're a family here, have this gear. And so what I think is really interesting to me right now, and I don't mean this as a bash at all to influencers at all, but the influencing world was getting very saturated. When Sarah and I started out traveling, I was one of the first people on Facebook, and we were starting on Instagram, and I never did it as oh, I want to get sponsored and get bikinis and get surfboards and try to do butt shots around the world. And I'm not dissing people who do. Maybe that's your thing. But I think it's a really interesting look right now in this pandemic, where everything's been put to a standstill, right? So what is your life story beyond just trying to get to this hotel, get that sponsorship for a day, get a shot in the pool or wherever it is, and then get out? there's more than that. There's a story behind it. And so I love to go to cultures, connect with them as much as I can. I found myself getting wrapped up in it too, because you got to survive, right? So what I would suggest to everyone who wants to be an explorer or an influencer or an adventurer, figure out what story you want to tell. And sometimes it's not that instant gratification. I worked 6 months to a year on some of my films and some of, you know, just a social media post that I wanted to do. And so kind of figure out, yeah, what the story is, and don't worry about that instant, like, I'm not getting followers. It's quality over quantity. Wow, that was long.
I absolutely love it. You know, it embodies so much of the philosophies that I adhere to myself. Just as an example, we get approached every day by people who, in essence, say, send me gear, and I'll write some positive review or I'll do some content for you. And our attitude from the beginning has been, we only work with customers. And it's fundamentally because we want to make sure that the people that are talking about it like it, you know, that they believe in it, that they get it, and that they saw the value in it, and that they want to share the story. And of course, we want to collaborate. And at the end of the day, we want to build a community. And so I completely agree with what you're saying, and sort of, you know, paying it forth, believing in what you do, and trying to be constructive in everything that you do. And so that's part of the reason that I love you and your message so much, is that, you know, you truly embody a lot of these things, and are living it every day. I want to be respectful of your time, because every time we talk, we talk forever. What haven't I asked you, or what message do you have that, you know, I haven't brought up that you would like to remind people or talk about? I know normally you would have a million things that you're about to go do, so this is a strange time, but it doesn't make it any less important for things that you wanted to talk about that I haven't mentioned.
Well, I mean, I think I want to acknowledge you. You know, when I did Naked and Afraid, I got out of there, and I've always wanted to inspire kids. That's been my biggest dream. I want to inspire the youth. You know, I never got to go to school as a kid. I was homeschooled. Now the whole world's going into homeschooling. And I want to be there, whether it's a big sister, an inspiration, an explorer, whatever I can be for families all over the world, and pass it on like you were there for me. And I don't know if people know this, but when I did Naked and Afraid, I came back and I thought, okay, I'm going to be going on the biggest talk shows in the world. How can I use this platform to do something good? And what I did is I started a crowdfunding campaign, and I went to all these schools. I raised about, I think, like $10,000, which was a lot back then. And I went to all these schools to inspire them. And you were one of my first contributors to the crowdfunding campaign. There was a surf lesson, I think, and I actually got to meet you guys, do a surf lesson. You might have even ordered a hat, which I really...
You taught my daughter how to surf.
Yeah, I did. And that was so special, because it was like, you know, I want to support this, but also it's again, the trade society, where I want to teach your daughter how to surf, and you support the crowdfunding campaign. And so I think that right now we need to figure out really how to support each other during this time. And so I went into a hole a little bit when this started, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my whole world is travel, and I can't do that. So what am I going to do? And lo and behold, the day the world goes into homeschooling, I launched a book for homeschoolers, and my amazing publishers, Ripley's Believe It or Not, even though the book doesn't come out till August, agreed to put an ebook version online for families all over the world to be able to get. And so it's on Kindle, it's on iTunes. I have a little copy of it here, but that's what I can do. That's how I can inspire. And it's like, you know, Nat Geo catalog on steroids, with incredible adventures and stories and things for the whole family to be inspired. There's a lot of female heroes and legends in there as well. It's not just about me, but, you know, my childhood and everything. And so I hope that through my stories and through this book that we can inspire the next generation of homeschoolers to then become storytellers and photographers, explorers, and then go get your gear and go get muddy or wet or whatever they can do with an Audex, and yeah, take up the next generation. But right now my adventure consists of living room to bedroom to kitchen, and luckily the ocean. So I want everybody to just be patient with themselves, and right now just start creating, because things take time. So if you start creating now, pretend like you've been given a month to have your own retreat of creation. And at the same time, I pray for everyone that are going through hard times. And I'm sending all my aloha, and it's not easy. I don't think it's easy for anyone, but if we stick together as an ohana, as cheesy as it sounds, then we can love the planet and love ourselves, and yeah, we'll be making waves of change together.
Could not say it better. Always a pleasure, Alison. I really appreciate the time. Always great to see you. It's good to see you, and I appreciate the positivity and the spirit that you emanate. Stay positive, stay productive, say hello to the parental units for me once again, and thanks for Dad for making the appearance. I'll take you up on the visit. I hope that can happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Audex Alison's Adventures. You!
Sounds good. Thank you so much. So great to see you.
Aloha. Bye.
Like and subscribe and follow us on our social media.